Ah,
She didn't
now
hate me.
you get to the crux
She
of the
didn't hate
matter.
me before that, before I
Right.
got sick. But when I got sick and left her exposed, and then exposed her stupidity, it was pretty hard for her.
That is corporate,
Corporate life.
yeah, it is. It's very, very rough, and there are so many instances. I really like being self-employed. I'm the problem. Everybody has to put up with me.
Yeah, that's okay.
I like that.
I
yeah.
like that too. But many things like that went on.
Except that I really try to be nice about it, having been on the other
Yeah,
side
well,
of it.
of course.
But I don't think a lot of people are anymore.
No. And in law firms, the tension, in the early 90s, late 80s, it was just incredibly intense.
But you know what? It was a lucky break for you. I mean, it's sort of hard at the time you're going through it.
No, it's driven a lot of these books.
If only we could see the happy ending.
Yeah.
It would be easier to
I
get
couldn't
through
even
the
believe when
difficult
this was
time.
happening, because I'm sitting there, I mean, really, it was blindside stuff, and it happened like 4 times in 5 weeks. Stuff like, you're writing at work. I'm not writing at work. Yes, you are. Here's your title page. I said, that title page was in my briefcase. You went into my desk and took it out of my briefcase? Oh, no, I wouldn't break into your desk. Well, you did, because it was in my briefcase. She goes, well, I'm allowed to break into your desk.
Oh, dear.
I said, oh.
What happened to, you always wonder what happens to people like that
Well, I know the
later.
managing partner, who was such a complete cretin, and he features as the ultimate evil man. He dropped dead 2 years ago of a heart attack.
Ah.
It was great. It was great. I had 3 people from the firm, all of whom are friends of mine. In fact, one of these guys that used to be my, boss, I mean, he was one of the lawyers in the firm. He's now my lawyer. He's a great friend of mine. And, these several other people that I talk with these books, and the Oath, Marcy St. John, who runs the Blue Cross Blue Shield, she was in that firm. She's a great friend of mine. But 3 people from that firm called me up when this guy died and said, great news, Tom died.
How interesting. Well, it's sort of a variant on living well is the best revenge.
Yes, it is.
Because
Well, Sheldon Siegel was in that same firm, but he was in San Francisco's office.
No, I didn't know it was the same firm.
Same
I mean,
firm.
he's been here. We've
That's
talked.
the firm. That's the firm that they had the shoot up in the building where they killed 9 of the guys.
Oh, okay.
Talk
Well,
to
Sheldon
Sheldon about
certainly
that.
wrote about it
Yeah.
in his first book. It's
Yeah.
got actually quite a lot of rage behind it.
Yeah, well, it was a terrible environment. I mean, it was a good environment for us writers
Mm-hmm.
to feel the real, incredible pressure of what these lawyers went through, and this was mostly in civil litigation even, but the incredible, I mean, people were crying. I mean, I was the word processing guy, but I was also the guy who would put my arm around and go, it's okay. You're not going to die if you lose. I will die if I lose this case. I will die. I'll kill myself if I don't get this. Crying. I mean, I'm just going,
Well,
come on,
it's
guys.
a huge amount of pressure. I have to say that it's much more fun to have a bookstore than a law firm.
Yeah.
And one of my staff said to me the other day, because I still tend to be, well, I am a type A, and there I was going on about something, and he looked at me and he said, Barbara, he said, there are never any book emergencies. I loved it.
That's good. It's good to hear that,
Yes.
especially if you're type A. Yeah. Are you kidding? There's an emergency for everything.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was. Anyway, you've really done, let's see, if I counted, I listed them. My printer's not working, so I had to
Okay.
write these down in my own terrible writing. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So First Law is your 11th in this series, is that right?
I'm thinking 11, maybe 12, but yeah.
But before then, you
Yeah.
wrote an elusive book called, is it Sunshine?
Sunburn.
Sunburn, which,
Sunshine.
I like sunshine. Sunburn, which
Sunburn.
floats out there for vast sums somewhere, was what, a paperback
Yes.
original?
It's a paperback original. It's got a semi-pornographic cover. It won the Joseph Henry Jackson Award for Best Novel by a California author in 1978.
A submission you didn't even know you
I
made.
didn't even make it.
Yes.
I didn't even submit it.
I love that.
It's a
Your
great one.
teacher's wife
Yes.
sent it in your name,
Yes.
and that gave you...
Well, I wrote it. What happened was, again, a little bit of, I mean, people are so, I want to believe that people are great. My wife and I have this discussion, and I'm sure you have it a lot too, about whether people are basically bad or basically good, or, if there's a...
We're all a mix.
We're all a mix, is what I think.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely
But
true.
my old English teacher, you look up to this guy and you go, he's got so much knowledge and talent and stuff. He was trying to be a writer, So I sent him my book when I'm 30 years old, and he writes me back or calls me back the next day, and he goes, it's really terrible. It's awful. Then I find out the next day when his wife calls, and she's read it because he left it on the table by the bed, that he's really pissed off that a student of his wrote a better book than he could have written, and he was really angry and jealous and just
I
said,
love that.
you know.
And you beat out a lot of books, including Interview with
Interview
a
with a
Vampire.
Vampire, yeah. I know Anne Rice is really worried about me, chomping at her heels, but.
Well, but you know what? There's so much. I don't know that people realize that there is so much luck. It's timing. You got to have the right thing at the right moment. And you know, I think a lot of people think if you write a great book, you know, people will read it. Sort of like Build a Better
Maybe
whatever,
they will.
and you know, do it and they will come.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really always go that way at
No,
all.
I
There's
mean,
a lot of breaks that have to go into getting your voice heard as compared to other people's voices.
I mean, I'll give you just, I think, a terrific example of what, you know, people talk about, you know, if you write a great book, it'll happen, and maybe it will, maybe it won't. But my book, Hard Evidence, which was the one that was picked up in Europe and Japan and all that stuff, it was, you know, I'd already been such a flop over here with my first two Hardy books that my paperback house dropped me, okay? Another paperback house bought the book for a pittance and came out with, I think, a first printing of 10,000 books, paperback, which is like none. But the book, for some reason, stayed in print all these years, went through 25 printings. And the license expired on that book last year. So Signet picked it up and brought it out last June. Went to number 17 on the bestseller list the day it was released. I mean, essentially, you know, they did a first printing of like 400,000, and it's still selling like crazy. And this is a book that you couldn't give away 10 years ago.
But that's because all the stuff you've written since has dragged
Yeah,
it forward.
but people are not reading that book and going, oh, that's a terrible book, and throwing it away. You know, I mean, really, that's the book that, you know, had there been, quote, justice in the world,
Right.
that's the one that maybe should have been the breakout book in America, but it was nothing like that.
But the point is, it wasn't visible for
That's
whatever
right.
reason.
Yeah, it
and
was just
until
under
you
the radar.
find that path, you know, that
Yeah.
visibility, the book is still the book.
Right.
It's the same book
Right.
that you wrote.
I
and
mean,
it
poor
didn't-
Kafka, you know, I mean, it didn't happen for him till after he died,
Well,
you know, what do you do?
Yeah, or Bizet's Carmen or other
Yeah.
things. But it's somehow getting people to read it, you know, to want to pick it up and read
Right,
it,
right.
since you didn't have the wisdom to write as Gregory, which would have helped them.
Yeah.
That really is the trick. And time and time again, I have seen good writers produce books, and I try to sell them, and I like them. I try to interest people in them. You know, nothing happens.
yeah.
Then one day, they write the book, whatever
It is.
and it oftentimes is just a subject that happens to be topical
That's
or
what it is.
catches their fancy.
Well, the
or-
13th Juror, I know what made the 13th Juror successful wasn't the book. It was the O.J. Simpson trial.
Yeah.
Because I had written about a battered woman. And suddenly that was the hot topic of the week or the month. Actually, it was for 6 months, it was the hot topic. And
Right.
everybody wanted to read it, and it's really like a primer on the battered woman syndrome.
It is.
And everybody just said, wow, this is the book. I was on 100 radio shows, you know.
Sure, suddenly you're the
I was
expert.
the hot guy for, 3 months, and I went, this is cool.
Yeah. It can also happen in a different way. Ian Paris wrote some very good, very contemporary and kind of quirky art mysteries that nobody particularly wanted to read, except me, because I
Yeah.
really loved them. And then one day he wrote An Instance of the Finger Post, a completely different book, you know, big historical novel, got
Right.
nothing to do with anything else, but it became an
Why? I mean,
enormous
that
hit.
is so weird how that one book happens. That
Well,
to me
it
is
is, you
always
know.
amazing.
And it's, I'll tell you why, it was an intellectual thriller, and all of a sudden that came back, you know, people, because I remember when I was young, people wrote these big,
Yeah.
weighty historicals,
Sure.
and oftentimes they were just, you know, Forever Amber and kind of pant, but sometimes you can really, I mean, what I know about the English Restoration in some part, I still owe to Kathleen Windsor, so
Yeah, right.
there we are, you know.
Sure.
But anyway, people got interested again, you know, dug in, and he just caught that wave on the, you know, on the upsurge, on the
Right.
crest, rather than on the down. But what happened is it dragged all those Jonathan Argyll art mysteries that, you know, just sort of sat around.
Right.
And publishers started to bid on them, and bang, all, you know, they
I
were.
know.
And that's the kind of thing that just drives me crazy. And I want to say to readers, I told you.
Been there all the time. Hello,
Yeah,
come
I mean,
on.
So it's
Yeah.
really been kind of intriguing to watch how that happens, and I think that it's not anything you can ever control. You
No.
can't predict it, and I think
And
if
you
you
know
try
what,
to
you-
write for that,
you
the
can't do that
problem is
either.
you catch the wave then going down, because
Right.
if you could see it, it's already too late.
That's right.
You know, you have to
Right, it's like buying that new stock tip you just read about in the paper.
exactly.
You know, too late.
Or going to the restaurant just as it got reviewed.
That's right.
At which point it's the
Yeah.
kiss of death.
Right.
So I do think that, you know, I can see why the 13th juror really popped for you in a way that hard evidence didn't, even
Right.
though I don't know that I would say it was a dramatically better, different book. Certainly had the same people in it,
Yeah, sure.
still you.
Right.